Good morning or afternoon, and welcome to Timer Tip Tuesday. I'm Soren Larson, Senior Technical Account Manager. I've got
Matt down in business development, sales, and timer support dude sometimes.
all in one location here. And then on the back end, we have James and Shelly Harris and Matt Avery as always. So if you're new to GoToWebinar, there is a panel on the side where you can ask questions. We're doing something a little bit different that we started last time for this, and that is that we're going to open the floor up at the end of the broadcast there. So we're going to save some time there for either a little bit of sharing or just kind of group talk about some methods that you might have, some questions you might have, or some ideas you'd like to bring to the group. Also, just another reminder that next week is RunSignup University, and there are a couple spots left. If that's something that you are still on the fence about, this is your chance to do this in person. So now that we've kind of let everyone jump in there, we will get started. So this is another part of our timer revenue series, creative ways to increase timer revenue. So we're gonna start off today just with a quick recap of the last couple pieces of the series, and then we're gonna go into some ideas for expanding your revenue as a timer, and it really is going to be centered around timer stuff. So while a lot of you may have production materials, fencing, bike racks and such, we're going to try to keep this more in like the timer space, the timing hardware space, and the results space. So a quick recap on the revenue here. The last two we did track meets and tickets, and then maximizing RaceJoy revenue with, and then
we did one registration as a service. So coming up there'll be one on registration as a service, and then there'll be another one July 22nd, marketing as a service. So again, talking about supporting your customers in a couple different ways using some of the tools we have coming up here in the next few weeks.
So with this, like one of the big reminders here, and this data is coming from the timer survey, 81% of y'all offer services beyond just timing. So timing a race can just be the jumping off point to many other revenue streams. There's a lot of different ways that you can make a race more profitable without having to send more staff necessarily. So that's kind of some stuff that we're looking at here. Some of the top services that timers provide beyond timing, most timers, like over half of the respondents, said that registration setup and management is a service that they offer. Race directing and event management, check-in management, course certification and setup, event marketing, item rentals, and then custom shirts or bibs. And you can see there on the right the percentage of people who are responding with these items. And I think the big takeaway from looking at all of this stuff is that these are all things that are in your wheelhouse as timers who, go to, dozens, tens of dozens, hundreds of events a year. You see a lot of different ways that can go right and a lot of different ways that goes wrong. And these are kind of ways to make that not just a way of improving the race, but also like making it more profitable. Who doesn't want to like get to pick how the registration answers questions? That's both a nice service for the race organizers and also a way to guarantee that you are getting the data that you need as a timer. So a quick recap of the last couple. Tickets is a great revenue stream here.
So we talked a little bit about how like you as RunSignup user have access to our TicketSignup platform and the ability to set up ticketing events or ticket spectator events for your customers who might be track meets. And so think with TicketSignup, think using it for parking, merch sales, spectator tickets. Great way to increase your revenue while also increasing your value to those customers for sure. And then we talked a little. You want to do that? Okay. So RaceJoy, again, as a RunSignup user, your races that are on RunSignup for registration have access to the RaceJoy app. A great way for you to be super valuable and sticky and really a great partner for your events. You can come up with ways to charge additional charges to those races when they're using the RaceJoy app. Think about adding splits to your offering so that there's more data going into the RaceJoy app, more value around that spectator engagement and that runner engagement. And it's just a really, really great way to take a piece of that RunSignup ecosystem and provide value and generate more revenue and be more valuable to runners and race directors. So keep looking at that, keep trying to come up with ways to incorporate that.
Mm-hmm. So what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to kind of break each of these down, and these are ideas. These aren't, gospel by any stretch. Kind of the same as the last things. Your experience is going to vary, your market is going to vary, and the pricing is going to vary based on that market. When we ask questions about how people are charging, it's a really wide spread of what people charge for various things. So these are some ideas and jumping off points. You know your particular market, you know your race, you know your audience the best. And so you're going to be able to kind of dial that in. But these are all some ideas. And we're talking about kind of same as we talked about splits before. It really comes down to, what benefit does this add to the participant and spectator? What benefit does this add to the organizer? And what benefit does this add to you as the timer? Because, if you're adding a service, it should be something that benefits everybody. And a lot of these are tied into the data that you already have access to, or are a way to improve what you can offer and use that data as well. The first one, and I think the most obvious one, is a timer. And this is probably one that historically was introduced before, like a lot of remote splits and tracking and things like that, is the idea of the announcer feed. So announcer feeds, just the easiest upsell in my experience, is just having a feed of names as people come either to the finish line or through the finish line, and allowing the announcer to read off these names and maybe something about the participant, whether that's what race they're in. Maybe they register with a message they'd like read by the announcer. Most races have an announcer on hand and a PA, or have easy access to them. And participants really like hearing their name. And not just hearing their name, but the spectators hear their name and know, so-and-so is coming down the finish line. I'm going to cheer really hard. Or strangers cheer for them when they have a name to put to the face out there on the course. So for the participant benefit, you get to hear their name, they get cheered for. For the organizer, it's a great engagement point. If people are listening to the announcer more, that's a better activation for sponsors who the announcer is highlighting there. For the timers, it's a pretty easy sale. It's already in that finish area where you're deploying hardware, which means that, if you put an actual independent announcer line out there, you're not needing extra staffing to put that up there. It's also a really good data point to check against the finish line. Who read on the announcer line, but not the finish? That gives you a really good idea of if you missed a read somewhere that you can check against. Pricing ideas for this, maybe $150 if it's just a feed to the announcer from the finish line itself. And that's as simple as in race day scoring, turning on the race day hub and starting an announcer kiosk. Or maybe you want to have an actual announcer line 150 feet or so before the finish, so that their names are being called as they're coming down the chute. Maybe that's $300 for that. So it's also a nice way to say, hey, we have these two options here, and one doesn't require an extra lift and maybe is a little bit more affordable for a small race, and then the other is a little bit more premium. And that gives the race kind of the option to choose how they want that to work. And maybe one year they start with just a feed, and the next year they want to upgrade to an announcer line. It's a really easy upsell depending on what your minimum fee is. That might be just an extra easy 20% over a minimum for a small race. So another idea would be using a result display or result receipts. So providing a way for your audience to actually interact with results and share them. Historically, this would be something where, like triathlons, you'd get a receipt with your times and your splits there. And a lot of people would even save those or take them home or just take pictures of them. The more advanced version of this has become more popular. It's the display board, where it's showing your name and your time, and maybe it has some sponsor activation on that board. So for the participant, the benefit here is seeing the results immediately in an interactive way. It's something tangible that they get as part of their finish there, and they're going to engage with it right away when they finish and they're in that post-race area. For the organizers, there's a really good engagement with an activation point. There's free marketing via social media because people are going to share these pictures and share these items. So that's a really nice benefit. You can turn it into a sponsor activation, whether that's a backdrop as people get their picture taken with their result display board, or putting a logo or even a coupon code on the receipt. The timer benefit, it catches issues early. If people say like, hey, this is not looking like my time, it's nice to know that, and they'll tell you. But it also provides a premium service with the existing data. The things that you're deploying here are using your results, whether that's using RunSignup's API for something like the result receipt tool that's built out here, or whether that's using the API to pull to a display board. So pricing idea, maybe $250 for a simple video board station that's just a TV screen, or maybe $50 a receipt print station.
To follow up on those two items, I remember two fun stories. So one is the idea of an announce line being a backup at the finish. I know that I've talked to people about it before. A lot of timers that I know will take their backup, will take their finish announce line data and literally run it in as a finish line backup read stream, but add like a 1 minute offset. So it never will get used if it's after a read that they got on the primary line or whatever the other backup line is. So that's really, it's a neat little way to kind of add some value to what you're doing from your standpoint. And I also know a timer who did a lot of receipt printing, loves the idea that someone walks up with a piece of paper in their hand with their name on it and their bib number on it and says, my time is wrong, and hands it to him. Because now he has that timer has a great paper trail of like, these are the things I need to fix, right? So it's really cool. So result kiosk and device rental. So getting into, as timers, as race management organizations, you may have a lot of hardware around that you use for your bigger races, whether they're tablets, Chromebooks, extra phones, whatever the thing is, right? And those devices, that hardware that you use and have people who know how to use really well, can be used outside of your own races or in addition to what you're providing for some of the races you work with. So, whether it's at check-in or as a POS device or, or whatever, think about being able to, use those devices as results kiosks or, whatever, right? Again, you're taking existing hardware or hardware that you've invested in and finding ways to, monetize it and to use it to races benefits and runners benefits and all that stuff. I mean, obviously participants love the idea of being able to get results right away. So it's a great way to provide that. For an organizer, again, it's making the experience of the runner better, which hopefully brings more runners back to races in the future. And they don't need to find another technology solution for this. And again, as a timer, you're using existing hardware or some software that you've invested in a little bit. You're taking knowledge and experience you have, and you're being able to charge for this, right? So I think Soren and I have talked about, if you have Starlink or some way to get really reliable internet, you can charge for that and then charge, per tablet or per kiosk or per setup or whatever to be able to set up those results kiosks or that kind of thing. So I think it's a great way to add on to existing stuff there. And photos and videos and certificates, right? So I think we talk about this a lot, and I think we should, right? When you look at what a timer can provide, being able to do finish line photos or course photos, being able to do finish line videos and be able to post those and support that for your races can be a really big deal. You've got access to some really, really great free software in RunSignup to do these things. The race day mobile timing app is a great way to incorporate photos into your backup timing solutions that you have in place. Maybe for really small races, your primary one, right? And so you have, look at those solutions, figure out how to bring those to your races, and come up with ways to provide like a premium service and premium products and features for the races you work with. Photos on the results pages are awesome. Participants love them. They love being able to grab them, download them, share them. It's a huge marketing benefit for the race. Organizers, love that they've been able to do this. You can put sponsor logos on them. Just a really, really great way to make the races better. And as a timer, the more things you can provide, the more you're viewed as the premium results provider or timing provider without having to add a lot of cost. It's just a really, really good deal. I'll also add photos and videos too. Backup timing solutions, right? I mean, if you've got photos of people crossing the lines with a clock in it, and if you have a finish line video with a clock in it, I always say if I have a video of the finish, I can reproduce results somehow. So again, how to charge for it? Think of a setup fee, and then think of a per whatever fee, right? So if you're going to have a camera or two cameras or three cameras, maybe it's $150 setup fee, and then maybe it's 25 cents a runner or something like that. And if you're going to work with photographers for your races, mark that up, charge for it, right? I mean, you're helping organize something that's really valuable. You're being a partner to your races. And so it's okay to come up with a setup fee and a per runner fee to do.
And when we talk about the pricing on things, regardless of what you put on there, if you don't put a value on these services, the race isn't going to value these services. Even if you're saying like, hey, this is what I normally charge, we're going to waive it for this. You need to let them know that this is an actual service that you're providing. Otherwise, they're not going to push it to the participants, and they're not going to see this as a value add if there's no value attached to it. And then I think this is one of the most important ones that kind of exists in that space where it doesn't have a dollar value directly, but it has a retention value. It has a stickiness value, and that's introducing your customers to each other.
I think it's really important for timers. Again, timers, race management companies operating in their markets, and they're running in communities. At some point, you think of yourself as the experienced pro who knows everybody and how to do things, and using that power to bring a running community together with the hopes that you're helping people create better events together. Because the better the events are in a market, the more new runners come out to them, the more runners bring their friends to those events. All of that lifts up the running community. And so as a timer, I always say, like, you need to also think of yourself as like, if I can increase participation in events by 10% in my market, that's usually direct revenue impacting on what I do, right? And so Soren and I talked about, in this instance, it's, can you bring your customers together? If you've got a race in the fall, that seems like a really great complement to a race in the spring, and bring them together and say, how do you guys make a series out of this, right? Or how can you help each other market your races to your runners? Find out where the crossover is and come up with a cool way to make that beneficial. And I know here where we are in Minneapolis, there's a timer that every year they get all of their race directors they work with together in one place and do kind of a teaching training, but it's also a networking thing. A lot of benefit to bringing your race directors together and having them rub elbows and talk about the best way to do things. And I think that's also a revenue generating thing. If you're doing that the right way, it's potentially something you charge for and you put on and you organize, and it's really beneficial for everybody. So.
And that's also like a good way to these other services that you maybe are having a hard time getting a race to like visualize or conceptualize. If you introduce someone to someone else who's using your services at the highest level, that can really drive home like, oh, I can do this. I think that there's often this barrier to entry that's really in like a smaller race's head, like, oh, we're not big enough to offer this. And one of the things that I think RunSignup does amazingly well is take those services that feel unattainable, photo tagging, race joy, announcer feeds, those things that feel like these premium ads, and really like giving you a way to deliver them easily and at low or no cost to you, other than time and effort, which again should be compensated. So being able to communicate these and showing real world examples. You see on RunSignup, us putting out case studies all the time. What's better than a case study is introducing someone to the case study. So just really doing this in a way that like It's a rising tide that lifts all boats with these. The better your market does, like Donnan said, the better you're doing. And especially if they can tie that increase directly to your participation in things. So we're going to do something a little different now, and we're going to open up the floor.
Fingers crossed.
And
We're not gonna mute any of you. We're gonna say whatever you want.
So if you're having trouble speaking up or anything like that, I believe you've been made panelists, which means you can unmute yourself and speak freely. If you're having trouble with that, if you're not comfortable doing that, but just want to like bring something to the floor, use that question box there. So does anyone have, let's start simple. Are any of these things that you're already doing, and how do you present those to your races?
If no one answers, we're gonna start.
Well, and they may not be aware of how to unmute themselves. So I've been prompting, asking to unmute, but they do that from the control panel. But again, you can participate by just typing in a response in the chat area as well, and then we'll kind of vocalize those. But we were trying to give an opportunity for people to really converse and interact, because we tend to have our Timer Tip Tuesdays tend to be a little bit smaller group. So we'd like to hear from you as well.
And I will say, if you don't have anything else that you want to talk about with if you have questions about anything we brought up, or questions about how other people might price it specifically, and now is a great time to bring those up, and we can talk about it as a group, or, because I think Soren and I love to get feedback, and people ask me questions all the time about stuff, from a timer perspective, and I'm always like, there's a couple thousand timers in the United States, and nobody's ever the same exactly. So sometimes it's fun to get examples.
Yeah, if we need to just like run through an example here or there, on this picture, that clock, that was a rental. For that race, when I was timing, I rented 6 clocks out that went either on lead vehicles or at various points on the course, and charged for them. That's a service, and to be able to deliver that 2 races, it's helpful. I mean, how many clocks do you have in your warehouse? And most races only have 1 or 2 in their finish area. So if you can find other deployments for them, like a hand raised sound.
No, that was not going off. But yeah, we have a very good amount of people on, so there's definitely a good handful of timers on here today.
So an announcer feed, I've seen that as something that's part of a standard pitch. I've seen that as something that's an a la carte charge for thing. As far as how to communicate that with your race, I think on the timer side, as far as when we talk about these revenue opportunities, the time to offer them or to suggest them is probably not like a month before the race, because their budget's already set and they might think it's really cool, but they might not have the bandwidth at that time. So make sure that you do have like a cyclical conversation. Just because the race is over doesn't mean it's like, see you in 11 months. It might be, give them a month to calm down, or even like post race that week when you send your invoice to them, also just send them a recap on usage, and say, hey, here's how many people did this, here's how many people did that. Include this as part of your post race reporting. So like, here's the fees, and then here's some other things that I saw at this race that like, that'd be really cool to try out. There's some of this stuff that you can actually deploy with RunSignup on the spot. If you're just like, oh man, you should try out announcer photos. I've got a tablet here. You got a volunteer who's handy. Great. We'll just try this out year one. That can be a really good way for someone to see a decent end product and see if it's easily deployed like that. Oh, wow, that worked really well. And then you say, yeah, next year, this is what the pricing would look like for that. For announcers, if you have a spare computer and you can spin that up and just give them a feed off the finish line, awesome. That's a good way to introduce that space. Some of these do take more logistical planning. options. And so should be part of that conversation. And when we see these conversations, we're talking more in the space on this webinar of increasing your revenue from races that you have an existing relationship with. But some of these are the differentiators between, getting a race and not being able to say like, hey, here's services that we offer. And even if they don't take all of those, giving them the knowledge that you can offer all of these services is going to also kind of reinforce your position as the expert for offering this race day technology to your audience.
So does anybody have anything that they want to bring up, talk about, ask?
We had Mark provided, if you want to look at his questions under the
Yeah,
question.
click the question thingy. Next one. Yeah.
If I can.
Yeah. Here. Look. Um, yeah, it's Mark is reinforcing the idea of having a local race director social conference. Again, like it's a cool way to show these things in play and to get people to talk to each other. The other thing that benefits everyone with is like, oh hey, you've got a really strong following as a like a ski event nonprofit. Um, we could use some volunteer help at our winter running event, and in exchange, like we'll help you source some volunteers to go stand out in the bitter cold for your skiing event.
Yeah, I think that idea is one that every timer should do. If you time more than 20 events a year in your market, I think the idea of picking a slow time and saying to all your customers, hey, I'm going to do this at this brewery from 6 to 8 p.m. on this day. We'll run through a couple of informational things and then just open up the floor and give everybody a beer. And I think getting people together to talk about, best practices, marketing, where they get the best deal on medals and those kinds of things is really, really beneficial both for the community you're in, but also for you as a valuable partner. So
And I
definitely.
remember, I do remember a timer I was working with that did that, and he also went through all of the types of services that he had to offer, including like race joy. So he did flyers and stuff, and nowadays you can print flyers or not, but but he went through his services, the different types of add-ons. So he talked about so it would be a great, now that we have tickets, like that's a good, just, it's more of a passive way of doing it, but where you're not, individually going after them, but sharing, these are all the types of things I do beyond timing, and bringing them together. And then, like you were saying, is like the case studies of, if you have someone that you're already providing like race joy for, then you can have them share how they like it and share how they used it, to kind of build that kind of discussion and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about industry conferences and how exciting those are, and how race directors leaving or you leaving a industry conference, oh, I want to do this, oh, I want to do this. What if you're doing that completely in your own ecosystem with your own products and creating that excitement for an audience that maybe isn't going to those conferences themselves? And again, like this is you being able to convey that information. And as a timer, the other big benefit of being the person to do that is you get to make sure that you're only conveying the things that you want to actually offer.
That's it.
Yeah.
If anybody else has anything they want to add, we're always available by email, smoke signal, text, phone call.
Yeah.
If you have one of those old rotary phones.
Do we? I don't have a phone line.
Hmm.
But yep, you know how to get a hold of us, and for some of you, we'll see you at RunSignup University. Otherwise, do keep an eye out for the next installment on July 8th of the Timer Revenue Series. So.
Thanks, everybody.